Hey everyone, and welcome to the back to the Four Kicks and Gigabytes podcast, episode 4, right? I think.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so.
that's cool. So, unlike the previous episodes, instead of focusing on just a game that I have not played or been attached to, we kind of wanted to do. We thought about doing this as a discussion video, but as a team, we decided to kind of just focus on a topic. And so we're going to talk about style, I guess, for
Or lack of style.
or lack of style, or just opinions on styles in games, and kind of just how they, I guess, affect our willingness, I guess, maybe to play a game, which styles we like. But as always, I'm your host, Josh Hawkeye38. With me is
Chris?
And Claire.
so JCC here.
Ooh.
So guys,
Is that
like,
the new intro?
yeah, it's just JCC.
JCC.
What would JCC do?
DJ JC.
What up, gamers? It's your boys.
JCC.
JCC. Bow, 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 bow.
But anyway, so between the three of us, especially since kind of bringing Chris here into the fold of things, and even between Claire and I, we all have pretty varying tastes in not just like for almost all media, but like with games in general or games specifically. We like different styles of things.
That's fair.
So which one you guys want to go first? Maybe kind of describe your like aesthetic, maybe.
Chris, your aesthetic?
Okay. I guess I like classic Western, like detailed worlds. I'm pretty much a graphics whore, so.
Your graphics are.
Which I'm kind of ashamed to say, but yeah.
So art style, like if there's a real fully fun art style, it's like if it's not realistic looking, it's not.
It'll take me out of the game, like.
So realism all the way with you?
Realism.
Yeah. So you
all
don't
the
want to
way.
be transported anywhere new, is what I'm hearing.
Well, no, I mean it could be futuristic realism. It could
Yeah.
be.
But it can't be cartoony.
No, it can't be cartoony. I mean, aside from like when I was a kid and I played like Spyro or Crash Bandicoot, like those are close to my heart. But when it comes to like games I'm playing today, hyper real is kind of the way for me.
What do you think that is?
I just think that we're in an age where our home consoles can be almost just as good as PCs, and I just like good graphics.
But I mean, like, good graphics is debatable because like you could have something in a style that's, like if we're talking like specs, someone could run 1080p, 4K, or whatever, and still run at 60 FPS, but it's a particular art style. So that I guess that's just my thing. Like, so I guess like that's why it's like if you just like realistic aesthetic, that's a different argument I think than good versus bad. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Claire?
I've always leaned. I really like artistically liberal games. So anytime that there's like a new developer and they're trying to do something really cool and interesting, I'm kind of really into it. But aside from that, more specifically, I like a lot of dark environments, a lot of like grungy, dim environments. But I also think that has to do with the category of games that I prefer, where I just prefer darker games.
But also at the same time, I feel like we haven't really delved into like too much like Dark Souls or anything like that.
No, and I'm not talking like Dark Souls. I guess I mean more of like on the indie side of things with Machinarium,
I
Limbo,
was gonna say Limbo.
Now Inside.
Okay. Yeah.
I definitely gravitate towards those style of games.
So I'm trying to think what that would even be described as, because like those get like between like Little Nightmares and like Limbo
Yeah.
and
Like she
Inside.
said, like liberally artsy kind of.
They're kind of like horror light indie
Yeah,
games.
it's hard to say because they all play very similarly, but like, yeah, there is a certain style there. It's like it's these dark shadows and minimal lighting and environments. You almost never see a character's face really. Part of that's just because of the way it's like framed, but okay. But I mean, you do like bright stuff too, though.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a fan of all the Mario games, and they're pretty bright and colorful and happy and cheerful for the most part. But I mean, I think that that's more of a generalized style. I think that that's more universally liked. Whereas if I were talking about like what I seek out in a game, it's more of that dark kind of imposing style.
Do you think nostalgia plays more on the role of the Mario stuff? Is it like, do you just like I said, you said like it's a generalized, you know, it's like an easy access style. It's like there's not much there to hate. But do you think at some point also, because you grew up playing them?
Yeah, I'm not super crazy about a lot of the character models in Mario, but like they have like a fondness in my heart because I grew up with them.
Yeah.
But I will say when it comes to Mario games, it's more about like the gameplay though. It's just fun and you can pick it up. Whereas with some of the darker indie games, even if the controls are like a little wonky, I'll fight through it just because I like the look of the game. I want to see it through.
So I think a good example of that, like, you know, was like Hollow Knight. I think, you know, like you loved Hollow Knight, but it got really hard. You know,
it's a rough one.
It's really
and same with Cuphead. I love the style, but it's really hard.
But I feel like Cuphead falls into a different like.
I
think Cuphead preys on a certain like if you just really like 30s cartoons, you know what I mean? Then
yeah, but I will say there is kind of like this dark edge to Cuphead
there
too.
Is,
for sure.
There's a lot of like shadowing.
There's a lot of chiaroscuro and.
Yeah, like there's a lot of, I don't want to say like not violent imagery, but it's just like.
I mean, it's even like grainy and purposefully dark at times, which again adds to like my desire to want to finish the game.
Yeah. Well, actually, so yeah, going kind of doubling back on that is, you know, we kind of talked this about in the last couple of podcasts, talking about like gameplay versus like presentation type thing and like story, like is, you know, you're sitting there saying like, you know, because you like the style so much, you're willing to kind of fight through some tougher gameplay, but is it ever, because like I think I've had a little bit of the reverse where like I saw gameplay that was really fun in certain games and I don't care for designs. Do you guys have that at all with anything?
Well, we know that you have that with Kingdom Hearts.
This is true. Like we talked about this beforehand, but like I like half of Kingdom Hearts, and I think that's the like for anyone that doesn't know, like I'm a big Square Enix fan, and I would, you know, like anime and stuff like that, and so my biggest part with, and I do actually like Disney stuff, I just don't like them together. But the thing is, Kingdom Hearts gameplay is so fun to me that I'm like, you know what, I'll put up with these weird, wacky worlds to, you know, build my characters and go slash it through stuff like and it's interesting though, because I feel like the ones that the Kingdom Hearts games that I prefer to play are actually the ones I feel like with the least Disney stuff. Like Birth by Sleep's my favorite one, and that's basically just Star Wars. It's basically just Revenge of the Sith, but like I feel like if there's like a meter, you know, like it leans more towards its like anime side, so I'm like, it's enough for me to put up with the other thing. But I would say the other example was like Mario and Rabbids. Like
yeah, I was off put by that too. I do not like when two different mediums come together. I really don't.
But
what about you, Chris?
I couldn't even give Kingdom Hearts like a 5-minute chance.
Right.
He tried to have me play it, and like I'll admit the gameplay looked fun. And
I've even played some of like the rhythm game parts, but
yeah,
it's just not.
Wow, I cannot with that style. I don't even like to watch it.
Especially when they're like they're from mediums that like I like you were showing me the Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I love Pirates of the Caribbean, the movie.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I'm just like, I can't.
It's such like a jarring clash.
I can't take myself away from what I know of Pirates of the Caribbean and like be like, okay, Goofy's in here.
And this, yeah, that's a bit rough. But like, well, I was gonna say
I
though,
can
like
understand like kids.
Yeah.
Little kids enjoying that because it's like that's wacky.
Well, and I think that was the thing with like the original ones, like was that like it's like if you, it's hard to say because I feel like when the original Kingdom Hearts came out, it was really trying to be like, hey, like, did you like Disney cartoons growing up? Did you like Final Fantasy growing up? And it was kind of like being like, here's the best of both worlds. But for me, I was like, no, I want those things separate.
Yeah.
You know.
Literally,
but I was gonna say though, like
everyone should.
Like, well, for me though, for like Mario and Rabbids, I don't care for either franchises.
I I loved both franchises, but when I saw that that was a game, I was immediately put off by it.
But like the gameplay for me is what, because it's
Yeah.
basically just like
RPG.
Mario XCOM is what it
Yeah.
is.
For me, I think that like if you can match the style with gameplay that is good.
Yeah.
Like for me, I know you're gonna hate it, but when Red Dead Redemption mirrors, like, it matches the artistic style, the hyper realism of that world with
Yeah.
a gameplay where you can interact with that world and
Yeah.
explore it and like see the details in it, it just adds to the immersion of that
But
game. So
I
I think when gameplay and style meet
Yeah.
and they're good, it just makes
And
it.
I mean, that's just, I think, like a good quality game. But I think for me, for that will require you to want to be in that world in the first place.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So-
Like the gameplay for that like lends itself. You know, it's like, hey, do you wanna feel like a cowboy?
Yeah.
Yes. If your answer is no, I don't think it matters how good the gameplay is. If your original answer is no, I don't want to be a cowboy or be in the West, you know, having gameplay dictate me it really feeling like the West isn't gonna help that, because I'll be like, no, I don't want to be here in the first place. But like I was gonna say though, like with Mario & Rabbids, it's like I've always liked strategy games, and to me that was just really tight, like strategy gameplay. Like yeah, I had to deal with doing it through Mario. Like I'd love if they did like a Sonic version of it, which yes, I was a Sonic kid, but
Gotta go fast.
and I'll admit part of that's nostalgia is the thing too. Which,
Oh, just like, actually, you reminded me of like Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games was another one that I really couldn't wrap my head around.
and I want
I
the
know.
Tokyo one so bad because it
know.
looks fun, and that's the thing. It just looks like, I think we should have. I mean, well, okay, well then here's this. What about Super Smash Brothers?
I knew you were gonna bring up Smash, but Smash is almost it's so overarching and it's every franchise that it's like, how could you? And also, it's not as if though you're going on. Well, I mean, I guess there is the story mode in Smash,
Yeah.
but it's not as if though you're like trying to get immersed in a world or anything. It's just purely a fighting platform game.
I guess, yeah. But I mean, okay, I guess that's fair.
So I don't mind seeing those characters next to each other, but if I was, say, playing Kingdom Hearts and I had to do a mission where Goofy was talking to, I don't even know the characters'
right.
names.
It's like,
Like, but some anime character, it would really throw me for a loop having to hear their dialogue, get invested in that story, and then play it.
yeah. But once again, I think they go back to, you just didn't want to be there in the first place. Like, I think for me, okay, so actually, I was going to kind of double back on something else too. Is that like, so like I was a Sonic fan growing up, you were a Mario fan growing up. Chris, I think you were more of a Crash kid, right?
Yeah.
So
The three elements.
there's like two parts.
Spyro.
Yeah, like there's like two elements to this, because those are essentially almost 2 to 3 different eras of gaming, but also having their own style too. Because like I like Sonic for both. I like design wise, so I wish more Sonic games were good. That's the thing. That's actually one part where, as much as I like the style and design, his a lot of the gameplay and stuff like that really holds back. Like I said, if there was a Mario and Rabbids game, but it was Sonic instead, I'd be all over that in an instant. I bought Sonic Lost Kingdom, and that game is wonky as hell, but it was like basically like trying to be Sonic Galaxy,
Yeah.
essentially.
Sonic
And so,
hasn't
but
had good luck
so,
with 3D.
but on the other side of that though is like I grew up in that era of like 16-bit stuff, so I also just have a fondness for just 16-bit stylings. Whereas I don't know, do you guys have either of that too? Like,
Oh no, I love 16-bit games.
but do you think it's just a nostalgia thing, or is it just
No,
like
mine's
you just like the
definitely not a
aesthetic?
nostalgia thing because I didn't really grow up with that. But I mean, a lot of new indie games have developed that style that I've been very into. So it's kind of been like almost like a new style for me to get into.
Mhm. What about you, Chris?
I didn't grow up with it, but like anytime I see something like Castlevania or like the Metroid, I think I had one Metroid game on
Like Game Boy Advance or something?
Game Boy Advance. So I like it's easy to navigate. It's
Yeah.
like easy to get into. I
Yeah.
like that. And I especially like the style of Metroid. So yeah, I think I do like.
I mean, would you play
I
one?
didn't grow up with them.
Yeah, but I mean, would you play it? I guess now, because I mean, with your talks about like the more like hyper realistic stuff, um, it's actually one of the things that kind of worried me about like with self plug here. Watch our Legend of Zelda Let's Play when it starts coming out. That's one of the things that worried me about like starting with something like A Link to the Past or just original Legend of Zelda, because I'm like, you don't have the same nostalgia for those graphics, and I feel like it's hard to
textures, Chris. Textures.
No, because like I was watching some Let's Play on Metal Gear Solid, the first one, or not the first one, because that one is actually 16-bit.
Oh yeah, well, Metal Gear is like 8-bit actually.
The Metal Gear Solid, the PS1 game, and if I was like 26 years old in, what was it, 1994 when that came out?
I think so.
I would still be like, this is cutting. It was cutting edge.
Yeah,
back then.
yeah.
So like, even going back and watching it, I'm still like, I still like. The textures are okay because the style is hyper realistic, or what they have tried to make hyper realistic.
Well, and see, that's odd for me because like from like the 32-bit era, it's hard for me to play stuff like that because it was trying to be realistic. So to me, it feels dated. It feels very much like real. Oh, I'm like, give me a remaster of this, because I'd rather, like, I like the gameplay of this, but it is hard. Like, for instance, Final Fantasy VIII, right? You can play the original PS1 version emulated on a Vita, right? But they did a remaster of it on the Switch.
Looks better.
And yeah, and it's like, well, it swapped out because I think they just used like I think it was like the Steam version or version or whatever, but like they basically just like read it so that people have actual faces instead of just like a block of pixels.
Yeah.
Well, see, I grew up on the PS1. That was probably my first like real game console. So I think I give it a little bit of pass nowadays.
So is it nostalgia then? Like kind of.
It's probably nostalgia, you know, because I played like Gran Turismo, Grand Theft Auto, Driver, on all those games.
Yeah.
Probably terrible by today's standards, but
Yeah. No, I think, well, gameplay wise, I think they still hold up, but.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I just feel like it's like, I mean, seeing as I'm older than both of you, like I did grow. I mean, I guess the thing I have the benefit of growing up, like, depending on what your definition is growing up, it's like I remember all those phases, but like if I were to, like now pick one instead, like as I'm like, you know, perusing the eShops of like my PS4 or Switch or whatever, you know, it's like, I'll see some of like 16-bit ones and I'm more gravitating towards like, no, like that seems like a fun little game to play versus like I don't think I'd want, like, someone gave me like original Tomb Raider, I'd be like, this is real clunky looking. I don't. No, I'm like, I'll just go play Rise of the Tomb Raider instead. You know.
That's fair.
Like, so now, what about would a style ever intrigue you enough to get you to play a genre of a game you never played before?
Yes.
Like what? Like what would what would it have to be? Like how?
Well, I'm not a huge fan of RPGs, but if one, you know, intrigued me with a style that like I couldn't resist, I think I would play it.
So I think the closest one we could probably agree on is like Paper Mario Origami King's coming out, right?
Yeah, and I am actually really excited for it.
Which I'm actually surprised you didn't play the like original Paper Mario's, like Thousand Year Door or.
I just never got them. I mean, I was always kind of intrigued by them, but.
Because like I'm thinking the same thing, like. For me, one of the most like stylish games, but I think like, especially like Chris, like I don't think you'd like, is like Persona 5. Like Persona 5 is nothing but.
You have no idea how many times I've heard about Persona 5 in the coming weeks.
Like Persona 5 is like nothing but style. Like even in its like UI.
And I can
like,
recognize, like, the artistic vision and the work that went into it. It's just not. It's almost the same argument that you have with Red Dead. If it's not an environment or a world that I want to go to and like am interested in, I can't get into that.
That's fair.
The style, I can recognize the beauty of the style, but it just won't. It won't get me. I won't be interested in it.
And you have to really be into the style to play through all of Persona 5.
Yeah.
Because it is a lot of just storytelling.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's interesting too. Is like, you know, we talked about this with kind of like TVs and movies too, where it's like, I've always had an issue with people like, oh, I like story, but I'm like, well, how come you won't play JRPG then? But it's like, also, I understand the debate of, you know, I really don't like the style, and I feel like I don't get the same benefit of the doubt though sometimes, because I'll be like, hey, I don't like Breaking Bad.
I think that's because, I mean, you grew up in the West.
Yeah.
You're American.
Yeah.
And so
Spoiler alert, American.
Spoiler alert, Josh is an American. But it's not a big of jump from like trying to like Breaking Bad than it is to trying to like Persona 5.
Yeah.
Or like an Eastern.
I mean,
like
I guess
a Japanese made game.
I guess my thing is I feel simultaneously I guess, like this is kind of goes both ways, but like I see sometimes like if I don't like the style of something, I feel like people interpret that as I don't think it's good, which is I think a very different argument. Which like I think like I get like relief when I hear you say like, oh, I understand Persona 5 is like probably well made and probably has like an interesting story to tell, but it's just not your cup of tea. Yeah. And I feel like more people don't.
Just like you probably understand that Red Dead is like
one
of the best games, but
oh yeah, like if that's what you're looking for, I think it does a really good job.
Which I think that goes more into genre than anything than style. I know we're talking about style, but I think that's more of like you're just not interested in that genre.
I mean that's fair.
I'm not interested in.
It's funny that you mentioned that because like similarly, there are like there's the Wild Arms series, which is supposed to kind of be like a Western like it's a JRPG series, but it's set like in the Wild West, so it's like like anime-ish looking characters, but like they have like revolvers.
That might pique my interest.
And that's what I'm saying. Like
the style, but even if I don't like the style, I might like the genre so much that I would try that.
Well, and I think that's interesting because like, it's weird though, because like so out of the Wild Arms series, I own the fourth one, which is the least Wild West one. So maybe you're right. Maybe it is partially a genre thing. I just don't really like the West. That even so much that even it being dressed up as an anime can't entirely save it for me. But ooh, almost lost something there. But I don't know. I guess because there are other things too. Like I've never, for instance, for even like JRPGs and stuff, I tend to like the reason I don't like Dragon Quest. It's very still anime looking, and it's still JRPG, but it has a very Western influence in it because it's very like old medieval stuff. And the reason I've always gravitated more to Final Fantasy because sometimes it would incorporate like futuristic or like steampunk stuff into there.
What about Witcher?
Same thing. Like it was just okay. No, I take that. Witcher was gameplay.
You did not like the gameplay.
I did not.
Okay. There's a lot of.
It just never felt right. Is the thing. And I would argue the same thing. Just talk about like with like Western RPGs, but even I don't know. And I'm torn with that stuff with like Fallout and Skyrim. Is that?
See, I liked the style of Witcher so much that I forgave the gameplay. I would slog through it just to
look at it,
just to be in the world and see what was going on and like explore and stuff.
That's right. I mean, do you have anything like that? That definitely like aside from I think some of the harder games, is there anything like you're just like in awe of that? You're totally like gameplay's taking a second seat here.
I mean, I think I already mentioned the ones that come to mind for me. Because all the rest of the games that I play mostly for the gameplay. And then obviously if the gameplay and the look are good, then, I'm set. But, I mean, I couldn't see myself slogging through a game that's really, really long just
because it looks pretty?
Yeah. Like, I really like the look of Persona 5, but I don't know if I could sit and play the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because it's just a lot of dialogue, a lot of, I don't want to say like time wasting, but it feels very time consuming in how it plays.
Okay, so actually, as I'm kind of looking at our screen here, I just thought of this too. We mentioned something like Gears of War, and I feel like that's kind of another kind of the same vein of like Kingdom Hearts in that like I like exactly half of it.
Really? I thought you liked the whole thing.
Well, it's like the thing is with Gears is that I like I mean the world's creepy, but usually like the gunplay is fun. I like the design of the guns. I think the enemies look cool. My only thing actually that I don't like is the design of like the main characters. They're just like these really
Super
Bulky,
beefy.
yeah.
real beefy dudes and
Mm-hmm.
and I think the thing is too like we've talked about before like it's like I think like all three of us are it's fair to say like we're all like fairly big like comic book fans people and like I've always said that I think when you're reading like as if you're reading a traditional let's say like DC or Marvel thing you're usually I feel like one or two type of people. You're either someone that reads something that you idolize or you read about someone that you can relate to, and like in the case of like Gears it's like kind of neither because I don't really idolize the dudes from Gears, and I don't really I mean the audience can't see me but I'm a pretty standard looking normal dude like
We're all normal looking. None of us look like the Gears.
yeah we could no we can't. But that's what I'm saying where that's like exactly like half of the style of of those games I'm like into.
Okay. Would you consider like? I know you don't like the Resident Evil games because of the horror aspect of them.
Mm-hmm.
But like, would you consider those sort of anime kind of? Because the people are very like.
I don't know if I would. I think that they definitely have much more of a Western influence.
Yeah, and overall, and the thing is like, those games I think I look at those as. It's kind of been my issue with something like maybe like Just Cause or Uncharted is that they're, aside from like the zombies, I feel like they're just a regular realistic.
The people are just like super beautiful looking.
No, that
like in Resident Evil.
true,
Kinda.
don't get me wrong. Leon in the Res 2 remake is super pretty in there. He's all young and
Yeah, and they have like some of they have like some over the top, like anime-y kind of. I guess there's stuff saying anime.
Yeah.
They have sort of like the Japanese over the top, like sometimes they'll roll or they'll do something crazy or they'll just have some like kind of weird dialogue that
Yeah.
like normally.
Yeah.
it just translated weird.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't think I still wouldn't attribute that to its overall style though, because I feel like it to me. Like I said, I look at it as just it's a very grounded, with the exception of zombies, but like realistic humans, in a really messed up setting.
Yeah. See, I like Japanese artists that like westernize their stuff because I like their take of like what they think or their perception of the West is like. So for like Resident Evil and like the Metal Gear games.
Yeah. Sometimes they feel like they get it wrong.
I think they get it wrong, but it's just an interesting take on like what they perceive of Western society.
Okay, real weird thing though about like that kind of bugs me with certain Japanese games. Okay, and if you're Japanese and you listen to this, I'm sorry, but like I think this has to do with the fact that like gun laws in Japan are like super strict,
Yeah.
right?
So they love.
But no, that's the thing though. So it's like I've noticed in a lot of, maybe it's just because it's like they're Final Fantasy games, but they tend to have like people do way too many exaggerated motions with firing a gun. Like,
Oh.
like if you look, I think it's Raz or whatever his name is in Final Fantasy 13. He's like this black dude, but he's doing all these weird kicks and stuff. And he's firing SMGs like with his hands over his head, and I'm like, that just looks goofy. Why would you do? Well, why is he firing a gun that
I
way?
mean,
Or same thing
Joker
with.
and Smash too, with his guns a little over the top.
Wait, who?
Joker.
Oh yeah,
And Smash.
he's just like he's always got to be like it's
Yeah.
like sideways.
See, but then like in like the Resident Evil and Metal Gear games, they like super. They know like. Usually the characters are super detailed in like what their knowledge of the weapons and stuff like beyond than what like an average player would know of it. and they're like super well respected on like the weapons and stuff. So
That's true. Yeah. Well, okay. Speaking of Metal Gear, though, one of the things that holds me back, too, aside from like not really being a big fan of like the gameplay, is I'll. So I don't know if this gets you guys, because like, so Claire likes a lot of the, these very, like horror-esque games, and one of the things that gets me about like Metal Gear too is like the environments. They're very dreary and like. And I understand that, like, a lot, like they're on a military base or they're in the jungle, but it's like 17 different shades of grays, slates, brown. You know what I mean? It's
not a pretty world.
It's not, but it's like to me that's such a slog to get through. Like I want to, if we're gonna talk about like realism or stuff like that, like I like looking at. Like Horizon Zero Dawn, right? You go out and you just like look at.
That's true.
That's like an amazing setting.
Yeah. I think that Horizon Zero Dawn uses its colors and the contrast and stuff to paint this vivid world that encourages you to go explore it.
Yeah, I think that's super good for an open world concept, but
whereas like a Resident Evil or a Metal Gear game is like showing you like this is like not a good world. Like you're on, like you said, you're on military bases or you're in Raccoon City and like shit's going down. Which I think if you can get someone interested in like grays and browns and dark greens and stuff and be like, I still think this world is beautiful in its own disgusting way, then that says something to their style. Like she was saying, you like all these grungy,
yeah, I like a lot
things.
of the darker games, but none of them are open world, and that's okay. I mean, I don't think that dark, dingy look lends itself well to an open world game. I don't know if that's one I'd want to like go exploring fully, but I think it serves its purpose well for the games that I enjoy.
I mean, if you look at Grand Theft Auto 4, that's like supposed to be a disgusting looking New York City, and it is. And it is a good open world, but like compare that to Grand Theft Auto 5, where you have the bright, sunny California and it looks beautiful and stuff. So I think it's like it's a trade-off. It's definitely harder to make something that's grungy and disgusting looking interesting for a player to explore in an open world game.
That's what I'm saying, especially for like long periods of time. Actually, that brings me up. Do you think Grand Theft Auto has its own like style, or do you think it's just a play on realism?
I think definitely in the older games they had the styles going. Now that we're getting closer, less so. Especially with Red Dead. Like Red Dead, they don't even have the little. I mean, they didn't have it for Red Dead 1, but you know how they have the little artsy title screens in the menus and stuff.
Oh yeah,
loading screens where it's like the concept artist's depiction of the character, and then you get to see what they really look like. The closer we're getting to what people look like, the less I think Grand Theft Auto is getting their style.
So would you ever pick, like, for you specifically, Chris, like, would you be willing to pick a more cartoonish styled game over a realistic game if you knew the gameplay was better? Because I'm sitting there thinking like, something like, Windwaker is a very classic game, but like, if we were like, let's say like Windwaker versus something like The Witcher, right? We already know the controls on Witcher aren't as tight as probably they could be.
I mean, Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, Breath of the Wild looks fantastic.
Cartoony to me.
Yeah, it is. It's no way trying to be super realistic.
But from what I've seen, it interests me. That's where it's not so much that I don't like cartoony, is that nowadays, especially on PlayStation and the games I'm playing, I don't get a lot of cartoony games.
That's fair. I think you do miss out though if you don't have a Nintendo console.
Definitely.
I was gonna say I mostly play cartoony
games.
I
was gonna say.
Yeah. Like I don't think I've ever owned a Nintendo console.
Minus your GBA that you mentioned.
Yeah, minus that.
Oof. Nah, I couldn't live without my Switch.
Claire, why do you hate Sonic, by the way?
His fucking eyes. It's those
That's
eyes.
it. That's the one design thing. It's just the eyes.
Do you think, were you upset when you first saw the disgusting
Yeah,
looking
the
Sonic?
first. If we're talking about the Sonic movie, yeah, when that animation studio first posted that horror that was going to be the original Sonic, that was
God.
disgusting.
Which I don't know if this is really related to. Yeah, it's still related to style. Do you think that artists. Do you think that artists, when they put out something like a beloved character like Sonic, do you understand the criticism of what Sonic looked like? It doesn't have to specifically be Sonic. It could be any artist's vision of a beloved character. Do you think that it's up to the audience to tell them, no, he or she shouldn't look like that?
Are you like as well as, or in compared to like them just doing their own interpretation type thing?
Yeah.
Do
you think that takes away from an artist's ability to make a character their own? Like, for example, all these different styles of Batman. What if someone was like, specifically in this animated show, somebody was like, we don't like the way Batman looks, change him, and then they changed him. Do you think that's right?
I think it really depends. I think it's in. I feel like if it's paying the right. I'm trying to think of a way where it's like I feel like you have to have like the character at heart. You know what I mean? If you're doing like if you do it and it seems like you're just trying to say something vaguely like the character, then versus like paying homage to certain parts of it, like I think I think you can do your own rendition of it, put your own twist on it, but I think there's some core facets of a character that have to be, you know, retained in a certain way. Like I feel like there's it's a fine line of like, besides just like recreating someone else's art, of like doing your own, like changing it just enough or doing it a certain way. But I do think there are certain like principles to kind of stick to.
Okay.
I don't know. What do you
that
think,
Sonic was disgusting.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that I don't think an artist should change their vision, especially if they do have like an original character, just to appease an audience, especially if they just want to do it because they feel like it'll be more lucrative. But at the same time, if you want to be successful, you can't have, you know, say a main character of any game look too atrocious or no one would want to play because you're stuck looking at that character the whole time.
It's a fine line between...
unless of course you're purposefully creating monsters.
Oh yeah. Well, in that case it's free.
In that case it's just go hog wild.
Yeah.
Well, I was to say that there is kind of also to think about stuff that's like fundamentally good and bad. Like if we're gonna talk about the different renditions too of like of character, like, you know, Rob Liefeld gets a lot of crap for his art in the '90s because it was so. It was so ridiculous looking. Like these people were like completely like barrel chested.
Yeah.
He never really knew how to draw feet, and just the proportions wrong all over the place. And I think, you know, in like that argument, it's like no, it's just like bad drawing because it's not anatomically and like it's not he was trying to do a cartoony take on it where, you know, it's things in cartoons can bend in ways that they're not supposed to bend.
Comic books, it's like
but like if you have a character in a pose and you're trying to make that pose believable, you know,
it's like the eye can catch what's wrong with it.
Yeah, and there's something, you know, like positioned wrong or posture's wrong or something like that. And I think that kind of applies to the games too, where it's like if a character feels like they're not right in a style, I guess, or not supposed to be, like, I don't know, if I was playing like Arkham Knight and all of a sudden Batman started like bouncing around like a rubber ball, I'd be like, well, this doesn't seem right.
Yeah.
Like you said with Gears, it is kind of strange how beefy the Gears soldiers are, and they don't really give an explanation. Like they don't say like soldiers in this future have like some sort of enhancements or anything like that, because you look at Marcus, and then a woman is standing right next to him, and she's like a pencil.
I was gonna say, and that's the thing too, is that like there are regular humans in Gears,
which is why I think if they would have explained why these dudes are huge, like, to combat the locusts
the locusts or whatever, it's just like, oh,
it
okay,
would make more sense. I guess.
So yeah, yeah, that's another thing too is like style continuity.
Yeah.
So actually, it's interesting because we were talking about mashups earlier and stuff like that, and ones that don't fit. But like one of the ones that's always been interesting to me is like Marvel vs. Capcom, right? Seemingly totally different universes, and if you're a Street Fighter fan, I'm sorry, but they're very anime-esque designs. So when you really look at them, like they have very like manga-looking like designs to them. And the interesting thing too is that like the Marvel like those Marvel designs, like once again, if we're talking like interpretation, like that's a different artist interpretation than was going on in the comics at the time, and by today's standards of what most people think of when they think Marvel. But like it stylistically fits with the way that the Capcom characters look. They have a certain like they're cartoony enough. They're a little anime-esque, and all the colors are bright. But so I think that helps from keeping it from being like a Kingdom Hearts or what was the other one, or like Mario and Rabbids, because like I think purposely made them in a style that was like congruent with each other.
No, I think that's fair. But also going back to like just talking about like anatomical models in games, I'm much more forgiving of original characters looking a little wonky or zany, especially in like cartoony games, than having to look at character models that are like anatomically incorrect. Like there's a lot of Japanese games that like I'll watch you play, and like all of a sudden bodies are bending in weird ways, and like proportions are just really off. And I'm not just talking like women with obviously fucking gazongas on a tiny waist, but like I'm just talking
what games
like.
do you think I'm playing?
Oh, I see the games you play. But
I know what you're talking about now.
I don't even know what I'm talking about.
I remember.
What?
Well, one specifically, just the Senran Kagura game, though.
Oh yeah. Ridiculous. But no,
that's a whole other thing.
I just think that it's like we were talking about Sonic before, and yeah, he's got I goof on it all the time. He's got the goofy eyeballs.
The Yuna eye.
But I mean, at least that artist like stuck to their vision, and for the most part, he's remained that same look
there's
for
been
a
a couple
long
iterations
time.
of Sonic.
And I'm much more forgiving of like
cartoony.
Yeah, of like Sonic keeping to that original look than say like a game where a human is supposed to look like a human, but they don't look like a human.
So Mario.
You could look like Mario.
No, I'm saying.
You kind of do.
Like, well, that's the thing. I should get about like style continuity. Like it always freaked me out that in like Mario Odyssey, you go to New Donk City, and there's Mario, very cartoony looking Mario, who's supposed to be human. At least I think he's supposed to be human. Next to like regular humans.
Yeah,
and
that actually really threw me off. And I know you always ask me why Odyssey's like not on my favorite Mario game list, and I think it is just because it was like trying to do too many types of styles in one game.
Yeah. Well, and actually that's interesting. So like I said, I was a Sonic fan, but like one game, like if we're gonna like attribute to like, actually this is one that kind of attribute to both. Like I'm not a big Mario fan, but like when I saw like Galaxy for the first time, I was playing a demo of Galaxy at like a GameStop or whatever, and I was like, I'm not a Mario fan, but this looks really cool. Like these these little planets.
Galaxy's
and great. It was like the perfect lightning in a bottle of, oh no, this looks like a fun environment, but also this gameplay is super fun.
Yeah, definitely.
So I guess with that said, kind of what to you, like pick a game, what is your favorite kind of like merriment of like it was like the perfect like your full on style aesthetic plus like your favorite gameplay.
Oof, plus gameplay, because like I have lots of like ones that are like just style, but I don't know, I really like point and click puzzle games, and Machinarium style is just spot on, so I might have to say Machinarium.
That's gonna be tough. I guess I'd go with Grand Theft Auto.
5?
The whole series.
Oh, okay.
Wait, what was it?
Grand Theft Auto.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I like I just like the style of it.
I'm surprised, like,
You thought I was gonna say Red Dead, weren't you? Didn't
No,
you?
I thought you were gonna say Uncharted. But I guess like if gameplay's not up, is it just because gameplay's lacking there, or?
Well, you said it had to be gameplay
And, yeah,
and
it was. I did.
style. And more with Uncharted, like
It's
I
more
love
story.
the style more than I like the gameplay.
Yeah. I don't know. It just threw me for a loop. Grand Theft. But yeah, actually, now that we're thinking back on it, Red Dead would have seemed the more likely choice.
Yeah.
Damn. Wow. Okay. Well, I'm just befuddled over here.
What about you, Josh?
Yeah.
I kind of. It's tough because like part of me really wants to say Persona 5.
Really?
Well, it's. I like the dungeon crawling. I like half of the gameplay because I do believe some of the text parts are a little too long. But I guess with that said, I guess I'd have to pick honestly, Horizon Zero Dawn, because it just there's something about it that I'm like, this is a really really cool world, and I like interacting with things, but also like the way of interacting feels fun. Like, you know, you're crafting your arrows and you're setting traps, but then it's like and I love the designs of all the robots.
Yeah,
They look like Zoids, and I'm like, this is the coolest.
It is.
Like the coolest place to be.
Yeah.
So I guess with that said, we'll see you guys next time, right?
Yeah.
Probably.
Subscribe.
Like and subscribe. Check out the other episodes. Look out for our Legend of Zelda Let's Play retrospective.
And comment. You know.
Oh yeah,
tell us what
comment
you
please.
think about...
Give us feedback. What's some of your favorite video game styles or kind of, you know, aesthetic, I should say. Maybe.
What do you like?
Well, yeah. What do you like?